Are you ready, Jordan?
You're tuned in to the Awesemo NBA Strategy Show.
And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Thursday, January 6th. I am Josh Engelman. I am joined by Adam Scher, and we're here to break down a 4-game NBA slate. Easy one today, coming off of 11 games of pure chaos yesterday. We are also brought to you by PrizePicks. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, I've been curious all night waiting for today. How did your main slate lineups end up?
Broke even. It was perfectly fine.
Oh, nice. Congratulations on that one. Congrats on the break even. Probably that's like what, a 90th percentile day?
Yeah, I might need to do that more often. It definitely so on the stress level, getting ready to make your lineups and realizing that you didn't enter any contests is a lot lower than entering contests and then running out of time before you enter your lineups.
Yeah. So obviously, just in case you guys aren't getting the joke, Adam just actually never registered at all for the main slate and realized that at, I don't know, what time was that? Somewhere in that 6 to 6:30 window?
6:45.
Yeah. I couldn't remember when I got the DM about it. So kudos to you on that one. Lance Stevenson night yesterday, obviously. That happened. Just couldn't miss. I don't know. What did he finish with?
I don't know.
It ended up being 41.8 DK points in. I ended up playing 32 minutes. I mean, I guess if you're 8 for 9 early, they're just going to keep your ass out there, huh?
Yeah, especially when, I don't know who he played over, but I would assume it was one of Washington or Justin Holiday or Sykes. Like, who cares?
Let me look at it quickly. I can give you that answer since we do have a little bit of time. Justin Holiday played 26 minutes. Sykes played 40. O'Shea Brissett played 26. Dwayne Washington still played 37. They basically just played a 7-man rotation. Justin Anderson played 7 minutes. That's all. That's everything else they did. So,
okay.
They just played everybody a lot. And that went well for Lance Stevenson. We also had a ridiculous output from Kelly Oubre in the fourth quarter yesterday. 8 threes. So that also happened. Monster day out of Jokic again went for, I guess I shouldn't even say that it was a monster day out of Jokic. He went for 70 fantasy points, which is basically like his normal rates. It's like a 60th percentile outcome on a per minute basis because that's how good he is.
75 on DK.
Oh, is that what it was? Okay.
Yeah.
And it's 68.7. I was just rounding up on FanDuel. Oh yeah, I forgot about like bonuses and stuff on DK. Well, we got four games today. We have a little bit of news that we're waiting on that will impact the slate a bit. But this slate is hard. There aren't pay-up options basically anywhere to be found. The one that does exist is Curry, and he's like an overrated pay-up option every night, basically. Like what he's been doing for the past 30 days and just generally in fantasy, his ceiling is what that should be, but it's not generally his median. So we're going to get a very different build. It's basically forcing you to play a balanced build because there is no such thing as stars and scrubs today. It's going to be fun to talk about. I'm ready to dive into it. Are you ready to dive into it?
Yep.
All right. We just got ownership 57 seconds ago. So just in case you were looking for that, I'm going to grab that now before I truly intro everything. And there we go. So let's do this. The Boston Celtics, 7:30 tip-off. So we have the half hour later tip-off today. 7:30 start. Celtics 1-point favorites in New York. 210.5 total. For Boston, Peyton Pritchard is out, and that looks like that's it. It seems like every single person for Boston is back. The problem here is that I'm not entirely sure that anybody looks good. Like Jason Tatum's 9,800 on FanDuel, 9K. And Jaylen Brown is 9K on FanDuel. Both of these guys are pulling, 15 to 20% ownership by default. The highest owned guy on a 4-game slate from Boston right now is Jaylen Brown at 13.5% on DK. No one else is in double digits. And I don't even really have anybody that I want to advocate for. What do you want to do here with Boston?
Yeah, I mean, none of the pricing looks very appealing here. It's one of these teams where you had a bunch of guys out, now you got guys back, and the prices are elevated. The one, I guess, argument in favor of some of the Celtics I would make is that it's a 4-game slate. Like you said earlier, there's not really pay up options. So anytime on a 4-game slate, when the opportunity cost at the top isn't that high, and you can get to a Jason Tatum at 8% or even a Jaylen Brown at 13%, given the fact that they don't project that well for their salaries because they're both active, but in any given game, one of them can just step up and take over and the other one, falls back a little bit, or they just both do well. But from a talent standpoint on slates like this, I become a little bit more interested in these guys just because at least they can go out there and get you 60 fantasy points and really win you a slate.
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking at it right now. I didn't get to much of these guys outside of 9,800 for Tatum on FanDuel. Are there ceilings? Yeah. The problem for me is that I think they all look relatively similar to their salary point. Like, I don't think there's a huge difference between Jaylen Brown at 9K and Marcus Smart at 6,200. Like, I think they're similar plays. I like Brown a little bit more, but it's basically the same split as the ownership. I think these guys should be like around 10% owned, which is, I don't know how actionable on a day like today. It helps that it's the first game and like we're not going to have to worry about news, but like, do you anticipate getting over Boston as like a contrarian mechanism for today's slate?
I don't know if I would say over. I could see just kind of using them, not necessarily one player, because like you were saying, they all kind of look equally mediocre. But just sort of using, I wouldn't be surprised if I ended up around the field on a lot of these guys, but also had like a Boston player in a high percentage of lineups, just because they sort of all serve that purpose of being high upside guys that are relatively low owned. Someone in chat mentioned you could see Horford rest tonight. It's possible. I mean, he played a back-to-back December 7th and 8th, played 30 and 35 minutes. If he were to rest, then, it opens up. Robert Williams is a better play. But even then, like, Williams is still 7K. It's not like any of these guys are really discounted.
Yeah, I think like Grant Williams would end up being a little interesting for Boston in that regard if Horford ends up out, just because he's one of the few guys that actually has a price tag that can turn into a value option.
Yeah, but then it turns into like, oh, cool, we're playing 25% on Grant Williams to get 22 fantasy points.
Yeah, exactly. It's not ideal. Do you see anything else for Boston outside of the starting five? Assuming it's Tatum, Brown, Smart, Horford, Williams, which I don't know why it wouldn't be. Can we get to Schroeder? Can we get to Josh Richardson? Schroeder at the very least is 5,300 on FanDuel, so slightly better price, but I don't see the bench of Boston as viable today.
I don't really either. If I went to one, it would be Schroeder just because he can find his way into a closing lineup. I mean, he closed over Horford yesterday, but he's likely to give you 26, 27 minutes. He has some scoring upside. Somebody like Richardson, and I hate that I'm about to talk this into existence, but like at 4,600, he just doesn't do enough offensively on this team for him to be someone that, you expect to realistically like just have a really strong, game in 25 minutes. Schroeder is at least capable of it. He shoots it off.
Yeah.
Richardson's going to get like 8 steals and 2 blocks now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm really excited to let everybody know they should clip the audio from the like 8th minute of this show today, just to tweet that bad boy out. I wish that I could try to wring some more information out of this Boston side. I just don't think it's here. Like, you want to pick any one of those Boston starters to have in a lineup, go for it. I don't even know really which one I want to tell you to pick first.
I think I would go Jaylen first, but he's also the highest owned. So
yeah, I think Jaylen Brown is the best play from Boston, but I think it's all really relative. So choose wisely. Now the Knicks, they are different. This is a weird team, but it is a team that we don't really have a lot of question marks for. The only question mark that we really have, because we know Kemba Walker is out, we know Derrick Rose is out. There's a Q tag on Nerlens Noel, which to me is mostly meaningless. We know exactly generally speaking, we know exactly what the Knicks are going to do at center. It's going to be some combination of Nerlens Noel, Mitchell Robinson, and Taj Gibson. And I can handle that at basically any point in time during the slate, and none of it really matters. For right now, I'm going to assume Noel is back since he was questionable the last time. I'm also going to assume that he starts if he's back because he was before. I don't know how much that matters. I gave Noel and Mitchell Robinson a 24-24 split. We could hash out if we think that should be different down the line. I don't think that's a very high priority question for today. What we do want to talk about is sort of the starting lineup, the rotations for New York lately, and the ownership we're seeing now. Alec Burks and RJ Barrett are both basically 25% owned on FanDuel and on DraftKings. I mostly agree with it, although I actually think that Alec Burks is a bit under-owned. We could talk about him in a little bit. I actually think you'll be on my side for that one. Julius Randle is $9K power forward center on FanDuel. I think that's a fantastic price for him. He's $10K on DraftKings, just power forward, so a little bit less appealing. They are the three guys that I want to get to the most, and then quickly steps into this whole, like, how do I feel about him in a GPP scenario? Let's start with Burks and Barrett. How are you feeling?
I like them both. The $5,900 salary on Burks with shooting guard, small forward eligibility, I think is really reasonable because basically what you're seeing happen is Burks' salary had elevated from when the Knicks were really shorthanded a while ago when he was playing massive minutes. Then he went back to this bench role where he was close to unplayable because he was playing like 26 minutes any given game. But now he's back in the starting lineup, we assume. He started the second half 2 games ago, started the game last game. When he has been a starter this year, he's played big minutes. And you saw it last game. He played, I think, about 35 and a half minutes. He's, 0.9 to 1 fantasy point per minute guy. He's got guard and forward eligibility. His salary is falling as a result of basically there's just like a lag effect where the salary is adjusting now to Alec Burks being a bench player that plays 25 minutes and suddenly he's a starter that plays 36 again. So it just naturally makes him a little bit underpriced.
I gave him 35 minutes, at which point I'm getting like 2x the field. If he maintains 22% ownership, I think I'll be well over the field on Alec Burks. And I'm more than okay with that because he's just he's a very different play when he's in the starting lineup. And with the salary lower, as you mentioned, it looks great. I don't have much to add here for RJ Barrett. He's been playing a little bit better as of late. He's looking for his shot a little bit more as of late. I think he's properly owned at 25%.
Yeah, I agree. He's kind of just there, but yeah. I think he's a little underpriced.
Okay. What do we do with someone like Julius Randle for 10K on DraftKings? Because we don't exactly have this overabundance of value yet. 10K is a lot for Randle. He's not like that kind of fantasy performer, but at the same time, we're talking about a raw point ceiling on a four-game slate.
Yeah, he kind of reminds me of Jaylen Brown a lot, like relative to salary, because he's getting about 15% ownership on DraftKings. I think that makes sense because if you kind of think about it, like if you told me that Julius Randle was 8% owned, I would absolutely love him here because there's just not that many pay up options. And we know that he's capable of being one of the highest draw point scorers on the slate. 15%, it's not, I don't think it's, going under owned really, but it just makes sense for him to be there. He can see increased production without Kemba and Rose. You can see those assist numbers go up a little bit and he's going to play a bunch of minutes. You would expect. He came back last game, was questionable for conditioning. Tibbs said, screw that, you're playing 39 minutes, so no real reason to be concerned about his playing time tonight.
Yeah. Much better on FanDuel at that 9K price tag. The only other guy that I have any real interest in would be Quickly for 4K on DraftKings. It seems like Emmanuel Quickly and Evan Fournier are like the mirror images of each other, in that Fournier is going to start and not close, and that Quickly is not going to start but is going to close. And these guys are going to play somewhere in the neighborhood of 26 minutes apiece, just in very different ways. Do you have any read as to the minutes on Fournier, the minutes on Quickly, how you feel about either one of them?
I kind of hate the rotation they ran last game because they didn't even go a full 48. Fournier went 22. Quickly went 22. You had Quentin Grimes in the rotation get 20 minutes. McBride grabbed 3 minutes. That concerns me a little bit, but in general, I think it's likely that you get 20, like around 24 apiece.
Okay.
It makes it so they're both on a 4-game slate at low ownership. They're both somewhat interesting. You're just hoping to get a hot shooting game, basically. And you can't predict that. But at the same time, there's just a limited number of options on a 4-game slate. So getting somebody, and then also knowing, like if Fournier is hot, maybe he does actually play the fourth quarter. He still might not. They haven't really wanted to do that this year. But if he's hot, maybe he plays the fourth quarter. If Quickly is hot in his first stint, maybe he closes the first half. So like there is still a path to them stealing a few more minutes if they're playing well, which is nice too.
Evan Fournier, 0.68 FanDuel points per minute over the past 30 days.
He's so bad.
Yeah. So Are we speaking that one into existence now too?
Probably. Like it wasn't that long ago with Orlando when guys were out that Fournier just became like a stud.
Yeah, I don't know what has happened. That contract is not looking great right now for the Knicks. These guys are comparably owned. Quickly at 8. We'll just say Fournier at 8 for this exercise. Who do you prefer? Like Quickly just feels like you want to play him more. Like it feels like you'll be happier about it when you do.
I think Quickly might be the biggest gap between like what I mentally think he does on a per minute basis and what he actually does in the league. Like mentally, I just like think I always think Quickly is like this 1+ fantasy point per minute guy. He's at 0.84 for the season.
Yep.
For comparison, Fournier is at 0.75. So like, and I'm not like making fun of Chad or anything. Like, if you were to ask me what the gap is in fantasy production between Fournier and Quickly, I would think it was so much bigger. Like, I feel like if you asked anybody, they would just be like, "Oh yeah," and people act like you, "Oh, Quickly, blah blah blah," blah. And then the same people are like, "Oh, Fournier is awful," and like the gap really isn't that big. I think I would actually lean Fournier just because he's getting the first minutes, but I think it's really close.
Okay, that works for me. Do you care at all about the center rotation?
Not really. I mean, I expect it to be a split, like you said. I think if Noel is out, you probably just get the 22-minute Gibson start, 26-minute Robinson close again. If it's Noel, you probably get the same thing, maybe 24-24. Robinson off the bench has been pretty nice this year. I don't mind it at 4,600 in tournaments on a smaller slate, but certainly not a priority.
All righty. Anything else for this Knicks team?
Nope.
All righty. Schedule for the rest of the day. Oh, damn. I actually forgot to hit you with a prop here. Let me hit you with it first before I hit the schedule. I was checking out OddsShopper this morning before the show started up. Oddshopper.com, everybody. If you want to shop around your lines, get the best one you can find, win a little bit of money too. Julius Randle, over 4.5 assists, minus 130 is the line that you're able to get right now. I have Julius Randle projected for 6.5 assists today. So I'm not entirely sure what's going on with that 4.5 line. It is one of our highest expected ROI bets today, plus 22%. So I just wanted to see how you thought. What do you think of over 4.5 assists for Julius Randle today?
Yeah, I love that. I've him at 5.5 right now, but that's with probably a couple minutes less than I'll end up giving him and a little bit lower assist percentage than I'll end up giving him. His assist percentage without Kemba or Rose on the floor this year is about 29%.
Yeah, I got him in for 30% right now. So we're talking about basically the same number. Love getting to that prop. Now, schedule for the rest of the day. This one's easy. NFL strategy show coming up at 11. We've got the Awesemo betting show at 1 p.m. NHL strategy show at 2 p.m. We're back then with the Jock Market NFL show at 3:30. Then Adam is back for the deeper dive at 5:30 and NBA Live before lock at 6:30. Remember, lock is a half hour later than normal today. NBA ownership rankings and NHL player projections are both free. So go to awesemo.com for those things or look for links in chat. Next, this one's tricky. The Detroit Pistons, 12.5 point underdogs in Memphis. Now, the big piece here that we don't really know, one, they played yesterday. We don't know the status of Isaiah Stewart, Corey Joseph, and Isaiah Livers yet. So this will have a pretty big impact. It won't in their chances of victory today, but it will have an impact on the minutes that go around. Have you seen anything? Are you anticipating Isaiah Stewart being in?
I haven't seen anything yet.
Okay. I left everybody out since this is the back-to-back. Seems weird that they would be out the first and then play the second. I don't entirely know. It's an early game, 8 o'clock, 4-game slate. I think we get this information one way or the other. So I have those guys out for right now. Cade Cunningham, one of the most owned guys on the slate. I think he looks fantastic at 6,800 on FanDuel. Still looks good to me at 7,900 on DK. Trey Lyles still pulling a ton of ownership. Assuming Isaiah Stewart is out, he's going to be the starting center, pulling about 30% ownership across both sites. Seems warranted to me. The guy that I think that we need to talk about most for this one, and I don't really want to do it, but I think we have to. I love Killian Hayes as a GPP play today. We talked about it yesterday. I think it's even more interesting today after seeing sort of the rotations that they're going to run. If this game is competitive, and it is a 12.5 point spread, so, more often than not, it's not. Well, actually, more often than not, it is, but you know what I mean. Killian Hayes is going to play 30 minutes in a competitive game, right? Like he played normal rotations in the first quarter, the second quarter, the third quarter. He just didn't close because they got their ass kicked.
I don't think it's that cut and dry, but I agree with
Okay.
your general what you're saying, because we saw the same rotations 2 games ago and Justin Robinson closed over him. But basically, the way I see it is if this game's competitive, Diallo, Cunningham, whoever's the center, we're assuming Lyles for this conversation,
Yeah.
and Sadiq Bey are closing. The final spot is some combination of Killian Hayes, Saban Lee, Justin Robinson. If Hayes is playing poorly and Robinson plays well during his stint in the third quarter, it was Robinson the other day. It could be Lee, but it's not like there's anybody on the bench that is like more likely than Killian Hayes to be in the closing lineup.
If he's playing well, he's 100% closing.
Right. There's no Tyler Hero on the bench. There's no sixth man that is a closer on that bench. It's just a matter of kind of in the flow of the game, who do we want out there? And going into any game, I think Killian Hayes is the favorite of the group. Like even if he's not 50%, which I would say he probably is, but even if he's not a 50% favorite, he's the favorite over every other player. So even if he plays 24 minutes in 3 quarters, he can get there at 3,400. But if he does get that full 28, 30 minutes, it's Killian Hayes, but he still is going to look like a really good value at that price.
Yeah, not the best fantasy performer in the world, but just looking through their rotations, I am interested in going that direction. We'll see what that ends up meaning as we get closer. Because if Corey Joseph comes back, I'm also more nervous about Killian. Like, it's just another name that can stop him from closing.
Yeah, I don't know that Joseph's even in the rotation at this point, but if he is, you could see Joseph replace Robinson, and then again, you could kind of just be a potential threat.
Could also just replace someone like Josh Jackson, who they don't ever have like a lot of fun playing, or whatever. If you want to give Rodney Magruder minutes or something, there are guys out there. Just from a GPP perspective, even though he is truly bad DFS wise or real life wise, I guess those minutes are there, and that's how it is for this entire team. Like Sadiq Bey is just going to play 36 minutes or more. Cunningham's going to play 34 or more in a competitive game. I think Diallo and Lyles are going to do the same thing. We saw Micah Potter now step into the rotation as the backup center. Luka Garza did not play until the game was fully, he never played an actual rotation, came in for just garbage time. If Isaiah Stewart happens to be out, can you play 3K Micah Potter today?
I guess. And you're just hoping that Lyles gets in foul trouble.
Yeah. Just putting it out there. Not something I don't know a ton about him. Just as a talking point. Let's talk a little bit about Cunningham and Lyles. How do you feel about them, given they're both about 25% owned on DraftKings today?
I think they both look good, assuming in Lyles' case that Stewart's out. You got just starting center minutes again from Lyles yesterday. He didn't play the fourth because of the blowout, but played 24 minutes in 3 quarters. I think you can expect around 30 minutes if they're able to hang in this game. Again, a big if. And then the same thing for Cunningham, 26 minutes in 3 quarters, likely to give you 36, 37 if the game's competitive. 7,900 on DraftKings, so the price tag even fell a little bit. Usage rate goes up a little bit without Jeremy Grant as well to 28%. So, I think they're risky just because they're 13-point dogs at Memphis, and you may not get a fourth quarter here. But if the game's competitive, there's a good chance that at least one of Hayes, Lyles, or Cunningham are exceeding those salaries.
$8,300 Diallo on DraftKings is a bit of a tough sell.
Yeah.
Breaking news, Houston Rockets assistant coach Gerald Green is unretiring and plans to sign in the NBA G League, trying to make a return. So
nice.
There's that. Sadiq Bey is just a guy today, 8,500 across both sites. I get it. The playing time's there. That is way too expensive for Sadiq Bey.
Yeah, it's a pretty tough sell when you can pay $500 more and get Jaylen Brown instead of Sadiq Bey.
Yeah. Is there anybody else viable on Detroit?
Someone asked if Isaiah Stewart's back. Is he a lock? Certainly not a lock, but he'd be a good play if he's back and starting.
Yeah, Isaiah Stewart, by the way, 5,400 on FanDuel as a power forward, 4,600 on DraftKings just a center. We're going to, assuming he starts, if he's in, he's going to look pretty good at that price tag. And then we go to Memphis. A lot of guys for me here that I like. I'm curious to get your thoughts. Ja Morant is 10,200 on FanDuel, 9,200 on DraftKings. That price is nuts on today's slate. He is 38% owned on DK, fully warranted in my opinion. The other guy that I am very interested in would be Jaren Jackson, 6,600 on FanDuel, power forward center, 6,100 on DraftKings, power forward center, pulling about 30% ownership. The biggest question here will be, are Dylan Brooks and DeAnthony Melton in for this one? if they are, and that is my assumption that they are right now, we don't have Desmond Bane. We don't have Kyle Anderson. Do you have any leans on Brooks and Melton? Let's start there.
I feel like they're back, but that's kind of based on absolutely nothing at all. I have them in for right now.
Okay. I like Brooks a lot at 6,200 on both sites if he is in. I gave him 32 minutes. Who the hell knows on minutes? Assuming he starts, that works for me.
Yeah, I like Brooks quite a bit as well, as long as he's starting. And he cuts into Morant a little bit, but Morant's salary also is dropped, so I think that offsets it.
Yeah. Yeah, the $9,200 salary on DK for Morant works whether Brooks is playing or not.
Yep.
10-2 on FanDuel complicates matters a little bit. I'm not as intrigued in Morant on FanDuel, but I do like Brooks. What's your assumption on a starting lineup here? To me, Tilly stays and Melton comes off the bench.
That's what I think happens.
Okay. They so rarely move DeAnthony Melton into a role that I think
actually
that they should.
No, Melton was starting in place of Brooks at the beginning of the year. I wouldn't be surprised if they go Morant, Melton, Brooks, Jackson, Adams.
I feel like being shorthanded like this makes you want Melton on the second unit a little bit more than it does when you have like Kyle Anderson that could possibly be out there. Bain,
yeah, but they still have
healthy.
Tyus Jones and Jarrett Culver.
Well, the question is, does Culver even stay in this rotation?
With Bain out, I assume so.
Okay.
I mean, although I guess
I went to
Melton
Zaire
back
Williams
also.
now that Zaire Williams is
right.
back.
Yeah, but either way, like they have Tyus Jones is the main point.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it. I gave Melton 24 minutes. I mean, even like we just have to wait for a starting lineup on this one because obviously, if Melton is in $4,600 Melton in a starting lineup, we're going to get a lot of him.
Yeah. Coming off the bench, I'll still find an excuse to play him.
Yeah, I mean, I gave him the 24 minutes, and I still think he looks really good. So I'm curious to see where that totally ends up. I got him as like a 1.1 fantasy point per minute guy in this spot. Adams just sort of exists on this slate. He's the type of guy you get like 15% of on a 4-gamer and just call it a day. I don't have much to add. What about your boy Brandon Clark? 25% owned right now on DraftKings.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's still a good play. He played another 25 minutes last game. That was a game where Steven Adams played 33 minutes. So you did get them to combine for a lot of minutes alongside each other. Played like 10 minutes alongside each other. Not sure you get as many minutes alongside each other tonight against Detroit as you did against Cleveland. And Clark's salary rose. So I still think Clark's a good value. But whereas I've been like really heavy on him the last couple of slates, I could see kind of pulling back a little bit here. I think it's likely you get something like 28 minutes for Adams, 22 for Clark.
I went 28-24. I would still want to be coming in a little bit lighter on Clark than the 25%, but still certainly a good value play. Plenty of ways that he could grab a couple extra minutes too. Yep. Nothing to stop them from playing them both together.
Yeah. I guess the way I should actually put it is if Steven Adams plays 33 minutes again, I would be very concerned about how many minutes Brandon Clark played.
Agreed. $3,200 Tilly if he does continue to start.
I don't think so, unless Melton and Brooks are out.
Okay.
I mean, he played 17 minutes last game, and that wasn't even foul trouble. You had gotten foul trouble in that first start, and that's why Jared Culver played like 30 minutes off the bench. But last game with Zaire Williams back also, I mean, you got 16 minutes from Culver, you got 14 from Williams, you got 17 from Tilly, and it wasn't foul related. So I don't see it.
All righty. Well, anything else here for Memphis?
If Melton and Brooks are out, I think they play a lot of Tyus Jones alongside Morant.
Seems reasonable in this matchup. Scares me, but seems more than reasonable.
And even if they don't, I mean, Jones can get there at 4,100, and he can get there in a blowout. He can get there just because he torches Detroit for 18 minutes. But I think it would be pretty likely that you get some run next to Morant.
And at that point, Morant and Jaren Jackson are going to look even better than they already do.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else here? No?
Nope.
Time to talk a little bit about PrizePicks, presenting sponsor of this show. What you guys should do is go to awesemo.com/prizepicks-promo. You can get a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, $100 deposit bonus. We've got free tools. We got a free player prop tool on the website that can help you out making your parlay cards. You don't have to worry about creating lineups. We're looking for over-unders on stats or fantasy scores. I've got a couple fantasy scores here for Adam that I want to hit him with, see how he's feeling about a couple of these guys on PrizePicks for tonight. How do you feel about 29.5 fantasy points for Alec Burks?
Over.
I would go over as well. I got him 2 fantasy points ahead of that mark. How about Jaren Jackson, 34 fantasy points?
It's about where I have him, but I would take the under.
Okay. I actually would take the over. I have him 2 points ahead of that mark. Another one that I think you and I are both going to immediately take the over to, because I think we did it yesterday. Cade Cunningham, 34.5.
That's so tough because if he gets full run, it's an easy over. If he doesn't play the fourth, it's an easy under.
Yeah. It's so tricky for this Detroit team. Final one, Trey Lyles. Tough to do right now. 26 is the number.
Kind of the same thing as Cunningham.
Yeah.
I think I'd be more comfortable going under on Lyles.
Same, because you also have the percentage chance that Isaiah Stewart just plays.
Right.
At which point Trey Lyles is going under.
Right.
So I think I would want to try to lock that in. It's just at 20, like I have him at 29. It's naturally an over. I would have liked to see that be like 27, get a little bit of extra wiggle room. But yeah, if you think that Isaiah Stewart is going to play, lock in Trey Lyles right now. That's really the easiest way to say it.
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple ways to win. Like 1, Lyles plays 30 minutes and just doesn't play well. 2, Stewart plays. 3, game blows out and Lyles doesn't play the fourth.
All righty. So make sure you're checking out PrizePicks again, awesemo.com/PrizePicks-promo. We go to Golden State, 3.5 point favorites in New Orleans, 219 total. And the biggest question mark we have here is, does Steph Curry play? Got a quad contusion yesterday at the end of their game. Otto Porter evidently is probable. Andre Iguodala is questionable. I started with the assumption that Steph is in. I don't really know what else to do right now. I don't actually think that he's going to play, but taking Steph out at 10 o'clock in the morning just seemed like it wasn't going to help me at all. It's a lot easier to figure out what you want to do with everybody else after the fact. Do you have any lean on it right now?
Not really. If I had to guess, I would guess that he doesn't play, but yeah. I don't really know.
So if he's in, I actually do like a couple pieces of this, but nothing too crazy. Basically, Draymond, Wiggins, and Gary Payton are all about 20% owned across FanDuel and DraftKings. A little wiggle room either way. I think all 3 of those guys are just a little bit over-owned too. Now, that is with the assumption that Curry is out. We don't have Curry in our ownership projections right now. He's at basically 0.1%. But if they're in, how do you feel? Like if Curry plays, how do you feel about Golden State?
I don't think they're that interesting if Curry plays. I mean, obviously it's a 4-game slate, so they're somewhat interesting, but you have Curry taking all those minutes. You have Curry taking all of that production. Draymond would still look fine at 7,700, Poole at 5,800. You could certainly still take shots on. I mean, he played 24 minutes yesterday. I think that 24 to 26 minute range is what I expect, barring, Curry getting in foul trouble like he did 2 games ago. Wiggins, I think, is correctly priced. I don't like a lot here if Curry is in.
Same. By the way, the Knicks have signed Archie Diacono to a 10-day contract. So you get to say his name again.
Awesome. That was actually the first thing I thought when I saw that the other day.
Let's say Steph Curry is out. It appears that Jordan Poole is the guy that we want based on ownership. 33% owned on FanDuel, 30% owned on DraftKings. Is Jordan Poole the best play on Golden State if Steph Curry is out?
I think so, yeah. He's played 415 minutes without Curry this season, 30% usage rate, 1.07 DraftKings points per minute. And the thing is, with Poole, like a lot of times when you see someone like Poole, the numbers without Curry, like you do have to keep in mind a lot of that is playing with the second unit. But when you think about the starters for Golden State, outside of Andrew Wiggins, nobody's taking that Curry usage. It's Wiggins and Poole. I mean, Draymond Green's not going to take it. Kevon Looney's not going to take it. Gary Payton / whoever else they decided to start isn't going to take it. So it still makes sense that even, in this case, Poole's just going to get more ownership. Poole's at 30.7%. Wiggins is at 27% without Curry on the floor. The only 2 players on Golden State that have a usage rate, 2 players that have a usage rate above 17% without Steph Curry on the floor, with the exception of Poole and Wiggins, are Nemanja Bjelica and Jonathan Kuminga.
There it is. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Absolutely going to be getting to a bunch of pool here. How do you want to handle Wiggins and Payton? We're both projected for about 20% ownership. Obviously, very different plays.
What was the question about Payton?
So Wiggins and Payton are basically both 20% owned on FanDuel and on DraftKings. How do we want to? This is all assuming that Steph is then out. How do you feel about Wiggins and Payton in that scenario?
I like them both quite a bit, kind of for different reasons. Peyton's not a high usage guy, but he rebounds well. He's extremely efficient because he finishes at the rim constantly. He's averaged 1.08 DraftKings points per minute without Curry on the floor, and I think it would help solidify his playing time. He played 24 minutes last game. He had played 30 the game before that when Curry was in some foul trouble. I think on average, like if Curry is in, you're expecting similar run for Payton as you're getting for Poole, like that 24 to 26 minute range. But if Curry is out, it's easy for Payton to get back to 30 minutes at over fantasy point per minute. And then Wiggins, 0.91 DraftKings points per minute without Curry doesn't give you the same sort of consistent production because the peripherals still aren't there. But a 27% usage rate for a guy that is likely to play 34 minutes at 6,800 is still pretty appealing, especially in this matchup.
Is Draymond Green better or worse if Curry is out?
I think he's worse.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm checking the numbers now. So he's a 0.92 DraftKings points per minute in like 250 minutes without Curry on the floor this year. He is at 1.13 in 773 minutes with Curry. 33.1% assist percentage with Curry on the floor. Without Curry on the floor, it is 31.9%. So the drop in production might just be, to some extent, bad shooting. 46.2% true shooting without Curry and 61.8 with him. So I think those numbers do even out. But at the same time, Curry also makes the offense more efficient. And, it makes sense that Draymond's conversion rate on his assists is just going to be lower when Curry's not out there.
Yeah. Do we want anybody else from Golden State, assuming Curry is out? By the way, what do you think about Curry if he's in? 10-8 on FanDuel, 11K today on DraftKings. I don't think he looks good at all.
A lot depends on ownership for me. I mean, if my options are paying 10-3 for Jason Tatum or 11K for Steph Curry and they're both like 8% owned, I'll take my chances on Steph. But a lot would depend on ownership. I think what's likely to happen is that you would get quite a bit of ownership going to Curry just because it's Steph Curry on a slate without pay-up options.
Yeah. Anybody else for Golden State other than assuming Curry is out?
Yeah, I mean, if you get to some Looney, if Iggy plays, if Porter plays, well, Porter's 5,500, so I'll keep it to Iggy and Looney.
Okay. Anything else here for Golden State?
Nope.
Alrighty, we head to the New Orleans Pelicans now. For the Pels, this one's pretty easy to talk about. It's just no Satoransky, and that's it. So the Pelicans rotation has become pretty firm as of late. This last game out, they played their 5 starters, basically 34 minutes apiece or more, a little bit of wiggle room one way or the other, but we just had straight backups clear across the board. That is a pretty big impact to $3,900 Nickeil Alexander-Walker. We could talk that through. Excuse me. Josh Hart and Brandon Ingram, basically 25% owned on DraftKings. No real ownership going to Graham, Jones, or Joval. That's very interesting to me. In particular, Herbert Jones at 4,500, given his eligibilities. On FanDuel, Ingram is getting that same sort of ownership as he is on DK, but then $7,900 Joval is also 28% owned. I think that's an exceptional spot for Joval here. So I like Ingram on both sites. I don't have too much to add. I think Josh Hart is clearly underpriced on DraftKings in comparison to FanDuel, and the Joval price on FanDuel we don't even have to talk about. What's the first thing you see when you look at the Pels?
Nickeil Alexander-Walker at 3,900. But then the second thing is they ran a really tight rotation last game. If they run that again, all of these starters look good. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if they will or not, but they gave 37 minutes to Hart, which is normal. They gave 35 to Joval, which is normal-ish. But
he doesn't affect anybody else in that discussion either, though. Like,
what'd you say?
If Joval's playing 30, that just means that Jackson Hayes is playing 18. He doesn't actually there's no impact to Nickeil Alexander-Walker, at least.
No. I was just saying like the starters run in general. Ingram Ingram only played 33 because he had some foul issues. But Devontae Graham played 36. That's the big one for Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Herbert Jones played 34. It just makes all of these guys look pretty appealing because like Ingram 8,100, that's a huge price drop, and he's likely to give you 36 or 37 minutes here. Joe Val is likely to play mid-30s. That's what he's been playing most of the year. He's certainly reasonable. Hart at 6,400 looks good. He's going to play 36 minutes or so. At 5,900, if Graham plays his normal 30 or 31 minutes, I'm not that interested. If he plays 36 again, he looks pretty good. And then similarly, if Nickeil Alexander-Walker plays 15 minutes at 3,900, I don't want him. But on average, I think you're getting 24 or 25, which makes him look very good.
Yeah, so I gave Graham 34. I'm going to go with the assumption that that's what they want to do when the game can be ultra close. I tried to cut Gary Clark a bit more. Like, I don't care about Jose Alvarado. In this case, I don't really care about Garrett Temple, although he's more interesting on DraftKings than he is on FanDuel. He's just a bad performer. Hayes is always just going to be the inverse of Joval. So I got Nickeil Alexander-Walker to 22% ownership, which is going to allow him to get into some lineups, but nothing crazy. He just has the biggest amount of volatility because if he gets 26 minutes like he did, 2 games ago, but that was also no Ingram, no Joval, I'm not entirely sure what we should expect out of Nickeil Alexander-Walker's minutes here. And
the crazy thing with Alexander-Walker's minutes last game, he only got the 15 minutes because of Brandon Ingram's foul trouble.
Yeah, they clean that rotation up very, very clearly.
He played 6 minutes in the first half.
Yeah. So I like the starters a lot more than the ownership we're seeing. Herbert Jones at 7% owned at 4,500. Like, to me, that's one of the better GPP plays we're going to find today.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I mean, he sucks when everybody's in from a fantasy standpoint, but it's not. Yeah. It's not like he's really bad. He's like 0.7 fantasy points per minute. But if he's going to play 32 to 34 minutes at low ownership, it's certainly fine. Same story. Like, I'm happy to get to $8,800 Joval on DraftKings at 11% ownership. Like, if that breaks well for him and he's playing 34 minutes, he's eating the Warriors in the paint. So that's appealing. And there's also the non-zero chance that like we don't see Draymond too if Steph sits. Right, which just makes the whole team weaker.
Yeah. So that's appealing to me as well. Do you take flyers on Jackson Hayes at 3,300?
I don't think I'll need to just because there's not the pay up options on this slate. But yeah, I mean, you can always make the case that if Joval gets in foul trouble, you're probably getting a lot of Hayes.
The backup center rotation for this stupid Pelicans team is something else. Like Uptown says Jackson has played well though. No, he's just never good.
He just does it's like Hayes does the opposite of Hernan Gomez. And so the coaching staff just goes in stretches where like Hayes was the backup at the beginning of the year. And they were like, God, I hate watching the second unit without any sort of offense at center. Let's go to Hernan Gomez. And then Hernan Gomez had to step into the starting spot. And they were like, God, I can't watch this guy play defense anymore. He's not even going to get on the floor for a while. And so now they're back to Hayes. And then in a week or two, they'll be tired of watching that and they'll go back to Hernan Gomez.
Yeah. Like if you're Jackson Hayes and you're shooting 62% at the rim, that's not going to get it done for you as a rim running center. It's not very good. I like Joval. I think he's very interesting at 8,800 and a no-brainer on FanDuel at 7,900. Anything else for the Pels?
No, I think they deserve the ownership that they're getting, I think, on DraftKings.
You've only got one more day to take advantage of the promos that we have for the new year. Promo code 2022 gets you 22 days of Awesemo Plus Platinum for just $20. Again, that's projections, ownership, lineup builder, boom bust, and all the analogs to the boom bust tool, Discord, and more. We also have a longer term for you. If you're looking to do more than 22 days, you can do Happy 22, HAPPY 22, 20% off of an Awesemo Plus annual pass. You're going to save $200 on that one. That's a big time saving stretched across the year. So if you know you're going to be here for the long haul, you should take advantage of that. We don't do a lot of deals on our annual packages. Happy 22 is going to get you there. Closing it out, the LA Clippers, 11.5 point dogs in Phoenix. For the Clippers, got a little bit going on. No Paul George, no Zubats, no Kennard, no Kawhi, no Hartenstein, no Jason Preston. Q tag on Batum and Q tag on Brandon Boston. We have Marcus Morris pulling massive ownership, 30% owned for 6,900 on FanDuel. I don't see that. 47% owned on DraftKings, where he's 5,600, makes more sense. Still seems a little high to me. Terrence Mann and Reggie Jackson both pulling sizable ownership, 20 to 30, depending on the site. Eric Bledsoe and Serge Ibaka are still both about 20% owned on FanDuel. We're going to bounce around here a lot, but let's start with the ownership on Morris. What are you thinking there for 47%?
I mean, I like him. He's really cheap at 5,600. He sees a usage bump without Paul George. Granted, it's not as high when Reggie Jackson is in as it is when Jackson is also out. But the combination of the increased production and, likely to play healthy minutes. He only played 24 minutes last game, but that was a blowout loss to Minnesota, where none of the Clippers starters played beyond the 4-minute and 16-second mark of the third quarter. So you can't really read into playing time there at all. I expect him to play low to mid 30s and be a 0.9 to 1 fantasy point per minute guy.
Yeah, I got him in at 0.93. I give him 32 minutes. I might be a little light there. I might have to bump him up to 34. That'll make him look a little bit better. I understand why he's getting ownership. 47% just felt a tad high for him. I'm a little bit more interested in Reggie Jackson and Terrence Mann just without Paul George. Mann is a guy that I get to probably a little bit more than I should, but he's just ultra efficient, 19% owned. Reggie Jackson, just a completely different player when Paul George isn't out there. So if he's 17% owned, I got a lot of interest in $6,100 Reggie Jackson. I think Reggie Jackson's the best play on the
by that price tag. That's a big drop. I think he was like 7,300 last game or something like that. He's played 9 games now without Paul George.
He was 7,300. 2 games ago, he was 81.
Yeah. I want to see how many games with Marcus Morris. So 7 games now. Yeah, and it hasn't had an impact. 7 games now with Marcus Morris in and Paul George out. Jackson's at 0.95 DraftKings points per minute with a 30% usage rate. If you don't worry about Marcus Morris, he's played 9 total games without Paul George. 0.98 DraftKings points per minute with a 29.2% usage rate, 25.5% assist percentage. He looks really good at 6,100.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot as of right now, particularly because of that 17% ownership. Do you have any particular thoughts on Mann?
I think the price tag is pretty cheap for the fact that he can play 36 minutes if this game's close. He's always kind of scary because he's not a high usage guy, but at the same time, that's kind of nice when you know that the usage is going to go to Jackson, it's going to go to Morris. Mann rebounds really well. We know that's a little bit more stable stat than others. So Mann is almost never somebody, barring, like the whole team being out, he's almost never somebody that I'm looking at and saying like, oh, I think I'm going to get a ton of Terrence Mann and I'm going to be really happy about it. But he just helps round out lineups. He's point guard, small forward. He's only 4,900. He's going to play a lot of minutes. He does a lot of things well enough where it's hard for him to like completely bust. So yeah, he's just kind of like a useful last guy in.
Bledsoe's 5,800 on DraftKings, just point guard eligible. I don't find him all that interesting. Surge, power forward center on both FanDuel and DK, 4,200 and 4,400. I like him a lot for that $4,200 price on FanDuel. Happy to get there for 4,400 on DraftKings. We're seeing the price come up. I give him 24 minutes. He's just a hair above a fantasy point per minute. Do you have any particular thoughts on Ibaka? I think he's like basically properly owned.
Yeah, I'll say ownership is really important to me on him just because I think there's a lot of volatility in his playing time. I really have no idea how many minutes he plays because I can feel pretty confident he's going to play like 20 to 22 in the first 3 quarters.
Yeah.
If he plays the fourth quarter, you really, really want him at 4,400. If he doesn't play the fourth quarter, you don't really want him. But at 12% owned, I think I'm willing to take my chances there and hope that he's out there in a closing lineup. If you were to get to a point where, he's 30% or something, then, hopefully the game blows out or he doesn't play the fourth or whatever, and 30% of the field is stuck with 19 points.
Anything else here? If Batum is in, he's 3,600 on FanDuel, small forward, power forward. I've got some interest there. It's just like a value option. But again, you got to know that he is in. I don't really want anything from the Clippers bench. Do you?
If Boston's in, I'm kind of interested there. I don't know exactly what the rotations would look like, but he's only 3,200 on DraftKings. He had been getting decent run before. And then, in these recent games, you've gotten Coffee getting some decent run, Winslow getting some run. If Batum and Boston are both in, I think it still becomes even riskier. But if Batum is out and Boston is in, I think there's a lot of ways he could get enough minutes to be a decent value. But also with the lack of pay-up options tonight, I don't really know how necessary it is.
Oh, by the way, I think I missed a super chat way back. Yeah, I did. Paul DZ with the super chat said, thanks again for the great info. Hit again 2 days in a row. Plus is a 75 to 1 7-leg parlay turned $5 into 380. Keep up the great work. Happy belated birthday to Adam.
Nice. That's awesome. And thank you.
Yeah. Congrats on the parlay, man. It's always fun to see. All righty. Let's close this out with Phoenix. So Phoenix continues to be an interesting team, and I'm really curious to get your thoughts on this rotation. No Crowder, no Ayton, no Shamet, no McGee, no Kaminsky, no Nader. The first piece I want to talk about, because I think it's the easiest spot to start. We know what we want to do with Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, Chris Paul, Cam Johnson. We know what they're doing from a minutes perspective. We know that they're going to be out there. We're getting like Paul and Booker in the 30s of ownership. I think that's fully warranted. Cam Johnson getting some love, Bridges getting some love. We got to break down this center rotation. Who's going to close for this team at center? That is a question that is up in the air to me. We saw it be Biyombo because things were working out pretty well this last time out. This is what I did. 24 minutes for Jalen Smith, 20 minutes for Bismack Biyombo, 4 additional minutes at the 5 for Mikal Bridges.
I think I want to go higher on Smith.
Yeah, that was sort of where I wanted to land, just looking through that last rotation. I just don't know how much they care if he closes the game.
Right. So it's tough because last game is really, really tough because Jalen Smith, not only was he in foul trouble, he was also hurt and went to the locker room and missed a bunch of time and then came back. So, and on top of that, Biyombo played extremely well. So I think it was Jeremy Savage in chat say the last game was just like a perfect storm of events for Biyombo. It was. Now, the flip side is you can't just completely write that off because Jalen Smith is not even a rotation player on this team when they're healthy. Like, they have nothing invested in this guy. This isn't a case of, Jalen Smith is never going to be passed by Bismack Biyombo. They could just say, okay, cool. Like, Biyombo looks like he's playing at a high level. Let's just get more Biyombo out there. So you can't just completely write off, how well Biyombo played. Assuming Jalen Smith still starts, though, I probably go like 28 minutes on Smith, maybe 26 on Smith, 22 on Biyombo, 28 on Smith, 20 on Biyombo, something like that. Just because I just don't want to read too much into the last game other than it's a fluid situation as far as the closing lineup goes.
Yeah. Because, against the Clippers, it's very easy for them to go to Mikal Bridges as in the closing lineup. Like, the way that the Clippers are set up right now, they can close Small, Paul, in theory, Cam Payne, Cam Johnson, Bridges, and Booker. Like, that can be their closing lineup today. That's scary to me as well. Yeah. I spent a lot of time breaking this down on the process show, and I didn't feel all that comfortable. I think 26 for Jalen Smith probably makes a bit of sense. I don't know how much I get to, like, Biyombo for 5,500 on FanDuel, you're just not getting to. 4K is different on DraftKings.
So here's the interesting thing, too. The first game Biyombo played, it was a blowout win against the Hornets, so you didn't get a closing lineup. But in the first half, it was basically a split. Jalen Smith played the first 6 or 7 minutes of the first quarter. Biyombo played the rest. Smith played the first 6 or 7 minutes of the second quarter. Biyombo played the rest. That kind of makes me want to move a little bit more to just like a straight split between the two, or even something like you were saying, 24-20 I think could work. Even like 24-22, something like that.
I think it's so hard to want to go to more than 20 to Bismack Biyombo.
He played 18 minutes in that Hornets game, possibly would have closed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you because the thing with going to more than 20 on Biyombo is you have to kind of be confident that 1, a center is closing, and that 2, he actually does have a chance at being that center, which I think he does. But
yeah. I think what I'm ultimately going to do is going to be fully dictated based on our projected ownership. Right now, Jalen Smith is projected for 20%. Bismack Biyombo is projected for 5%. I would like to just get a little bit more of Biyombo, and I will make my adjustments in order to make that happen.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
And I will cut the minutes of Ish Wainwright or Justin Jackson or Elfrid Payton in order to manipulate Bismack Biyombo. Because I don't know how well projecting these guys for like what we think might happen, I don't know how well that helps us from a DFS perspective. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I don't know how well trying to be right about their rotations is good for my chances of actually winning a GPP. So I think that in a way, I'm going to want to over project Bismack Biyombo and sort of basically project Jalen Smith and Bismack Biyombo for their best case scenario, and then just not play them together.
I think that's reasonable. You definitely want, if you're going to do that though, and I'm not really talking to you here, but if you're going to do that, you do want to make sure that you're actually paying attention to where you get to on those guys. Because I know, like, for me, sometimes I'll do that and then I'll end up being rushed. And then I look, after lock, I'm just like, shit, I'm like 10 times the field on this sort of random speculative play that I just wanted to make sure I got to. So definitely, if you are going that route, make sure you're leaving yourself time to actually dial it back and get it, where you want it.
Okay. Anything else we want to touch on for Smith and Biyombo?
No, I don't think so.
Are Booker and Paul?
So I guess because we did spend a lot of time on the like how Bismack Biyombo gets enough minutes to screw up Jalen Smith argument. The other side of this, though, is Jalen Smith's a very good fantasy producer when he's on the floor.
Yes, he is.
It's not as simple as saying, okay, well, I'll just stay away from Smith because I think there's a lot of different routes where Biyombo takes minutes. If you stay away from Smith and he gets 26 to 28 minutes, you are probably in trouble at 5,300.
Also true. It's a very interesting balancing act for this Suns team today. What I don't think is very interesting is the way that we need to talk about Devin Booker and Chris Paul, because I think they both look really, really good today.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Chris Paul's price. He was 7,400 the other day. He was one of the highest owned guys, and now he's 7,300. Booker came down $100 as well. Really like both of them a lot. One thing we did see the other day, and I don't really know for sure if it was related or if it was just because, Booker at his price tag is a little bit more difficult to get to, but you had a ton of ownership go to Chris Paul and less than I expected go to Devin Booker in a really good spot. So I don't know if there's just like a lot of people that didn't want to play them together, or if, it's just that there were more reasonable alternatives around Booker at his price. But that's something where it's just kind of interesting. Like, if that's actually going to be a thing, it would make me like Booker more, but I don't really know if it is or not.
All right. 32% ownership going to Cam Johnson is a little aggressive to me. I mean, the minutes are there. He's just not that kind of guy. But
yeah, I think it makes sense. But
again, I have Cam Johnson coming out of my Sims 20% of the time. Similar story with Bridges, but like Bridges is somehow 15% owned and Cam Johnson is 32. And Bridges has now obviously a way worse fantasy performer, but better positional split too. Gets the shooting guard small forward, which he shouldn't get, but that's neither here nor there. So either way, I like Phoenix a lot. That's all I can really say.
I wanted to see. So one other spot here. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong game. Damn it. One other spot is what they did with Cameron Payne yesterday or last game. He didn't play alongside Paul as much as I expected with Shamet out. Paul played 35 minutes. Payne played 21. With Shamet out, I thought you would get a little bit more Payne. So, he's still playable at 4,400, but I think you still kind of have to be cautious because where I thought they would just give more minutes to Payne, they decided to give Justin Jackson 8 minutes, give Wainwright 8 minutes, and sort of go that route to make up some of Shamet's minutes.
I'm real forever with the super chat before we get out of here. Said Biyombo and Marcus Morris are the same height. Smith might take a hit in minutes due to the Clippers only having Ibaka as a traditional big. None of that is going to matter.
I mean, yeah.
They're not changing any rotations based on like the height of any of these guys.
Well, right. Yeah. What I was gonna say was like the Smith maybe taking a hit in minutes is true, like because they could just close small if they wanted to play Cameron Payne and Chris Paul in the closing lineup. But yeah, I mean, like Biyombo, he's short, but he's still a center. Like they don't want he's not going to make them comfortable chasing Marcus Morris around either.
No, and Ibaka isn't exactly a traditional big either. So all of these guys are like sort of in the same sort of mold. Although Biyombo just got like knocked on the head a little bit. But either way, we got to get out of here. Injury videos coming up, GPP videos coming up, deeper dive later today. Anything else for you, Adam?
No, I think you got it all.
There it is. 4-game slate in the books. Thank you guys for joining us. Hit that like button one last time if you haven't done it already. Shout out to PrizePicks for being the presenting sponsor. We are out of here. Good luck tonight, everybody.